Hello, human persons. Deathless and Taxless, a corporate exorcism, is about to begin. A few notes about this performance. As you have likely noticed, we are gathered on the Zoom telepresence platform. This performance will be recorded for posterity, such that we may learn from these events as they come to pass. Please keep your camera turned off and your microphone muted until such time when you may be called upon to collaborate in exorcism. Here is a brief curtain speech as required by the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Welcome to the Theater Asylum at Family Arts and this production of Deathless and Taxless, a corporate exorcism, performing as part of the Hollywood Fringe Festival, now celebrating its 11th year. You must wear your mask at all times while in the theater. Please turn off your electronic devices. Open all candy wrappers before the show begins. Please note the emergency exit is behind you. And now, Deathless and Taxless, a corporate exorcism.
Hello, human persons. We don't have much time, so I should get started so that I can finish. I am reading a prepared statement that will account for roughly 1/2 of this performance, which I have given the title, Deathless and Taxless, a corporate exorcism. The concluding half of this performance will include the implicitly promised exorcism, a ritual that I will allow to remain mysterious for the moment, in hopes that you'll spend some time with me. Who doesn't want to witness, receive, or conduct an exorcism these days? As you have likely noticed, we are communing through the Zoom telepresence platform, served, like much of the internet, by Amazon Web Services. You should assume that we are all under surveillance. I don't mean this in a petty, conspiratorial way that someone is looking to take us out for our disobedience. Rather, there's a far more pervasive and less centralized conspiracy that this surveillance underwrites. The conspiracy of neoliberalism. The wholesale dispossession of everything we are, of which the corporation is the most visible avatar. And make no mistake, we are attempting to exorcise the corporation. This is a godless endeavor, though I will attempt to be our guide. You should know a thing or two about me if we are to become comrades. By way of auto-introduction, here is a list of my standard attributes as you would find on my state-issued driver's license. My name is Benjamin Ross Nicholson. I was born on April 2nd, 1988. I am officially housed at 33 South Boulder Circle, apartment 108, Boulder, Colorado 80303. My sex is listed as M. I am 5 feet and 7 inches high. My eyes have been variously described as blue, hazel, and gray. My hair is considered red, though it appears to more closely resemble the color orange. I am an organ donor, though my appendix and wisdom teeth are presently missing. As for my more esoteric attributes, I share these in hopes of establishing my willingness to be vulnerable before you. My friends just call me Ben. For reasons I cannot explain now, I choose to believe that I will die on Tuesday, May 21st, 2069. I will be 81 at this time, which is a rather generous age given that I eat too much sugar and very few vegetables, though I have cut back on meat in recent years. I have been married, and I have been divorced. I have found love again. I'm doing all right. I worked in Silicon Valley business development for several years and feel that I behaved badly in the pursuit of personal career growth. I must also disclose that I am white, I am straight, I have generally had my health, and I have had access to a quality education. I acknowledge that many powerful institutions have been designed to facilitate my participation and compensation, such that I may facilitate the ongoing reproduction of those powerful institutions in return. The heresy that I am here to deliver is not against you, comrades. This heresy is against the figure of the corporation and the system it fronts, what I might call neoliberalism, a term that will reveal its contours as we enjoy each other's company in the glow of this PowerPoint presentation. My heresy is this. I desire to be dying and paying taxes. Part 1. Didactic lecture. Okay, so you see this figure here. Let me tell you how to summon him, he who is sometimes referred to as Man in Business Suit Levitating, or Mibsil. First, you must have access to a computer, which I assume you do if you are hearing me now. If you happen to own the computer, if you possess the computer, then you can summon Mibsil pretty much any time you want, assuming the continuity of the electrical grid and that your computer is properly connected to it. Second, you should open Microsoft Word. If you don't have a license to use Microsoft Word, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Third, in Microsoft Word, change your font to Webdings. And fourth, with your cursor blinking black on the skeuomorphic page, press the M button on your keyboard. Make sure the caps lock is set to off. Mibsil should now have appeared on your screen and, if all is well, will remain there. If you haven't previously adjusted Microsoft Word's default settings, you should perceive Mibsil's suit to be the color black and his skin to be the color white. That is to say, he is a white man like me. Though we all understand that Mibsil is not a person, but rather a representation of a person, an artificial person, if you will, we have to wonder, what's he like? Upon Mibsil's head, we observe what appears to be a pork pie hat. Wikipedia notes that Lester Young, whose career as a jazz saxophonist spans from the mid-1920s to the late 1950s, regularly wore a pork pie hat during his performances, and, after his death, Charles Mingus composed a musical elegy in Young's honor, entitled Goodbye, Pork Pie Hat. Further, Wikipedia mentions that Bryan Cranston's character, Walter White, wears a pork pie hat in the AMC series Breaking Bad when he appears as his alter ego, Heisenberg, whose persona is associated with the hat. As we scan down, we notice that Mibsil dons a rather chunky set of shades, as if to suggest we should not have direct access to the content of his eyes. You can't be sure if he is watching you or not, or if his eyes are open, or, for that matter, if he even has eyes at all. The boundaries of his head are merely suggested by the location of his hat, shades, tie, and suit. His face bleeds directly into the page. Might they, his body and the page, be made of the same stuff, the very site of legal contracts and arguments? Of course, Mibsil has no face to speak of. Mibsil's tie appears to be fixed in an angular knot, indistinguishable in color from his one-piece suit, all of which plunges towards the narrowed bottom of his pants legs, truncated by more white space. Mibsil's dress shirt is either the same color as his skin or lacking entirely, raising the possibility that Mibsil is bare-chested, which is somewhat of a power move for business attire. A pair of black shoes point straight down towards the ground. Mibsil's hands and feet are not a sure thing. Notably, beneath the full form of Mibsil is either a shadow or a hole. We can assume Mibsil is above this dark circle because levitation is an element of his name. It would be ludicrous to suggest that Mibsil and the dark circle both reside on the same ground, with Mibsil standing on tiptoe behind. What would it mean if beneath Mibsil lies a shadow? This would suggest that there is a source of light above Mibsil, and that despite the depthless surface that Mibsil presents, he's actually perfectly round across his upper torso, like a can of Coca-Cola tapered to a sharp point. And what would it mean if beneath Mibsil lies a hole? This would suggest that Mibsil, in his implied ascent, has emerged from the pit where demons dwell. Further, we would realize that Mibsil might exist in only 2 dimensions, allowing him to become invisible at perpendicular angles. I believe there is something sinister about Mibsil, yet somehow I find myself attracted to the efficiency of his form and the erectness of his posture. Does he seem familiar to you, almost admirable in his severity, his stillness? Do you want to be like Mibsil? Let us set Mibsel aside for a moment, if such a thing can be done, and consider instead an idiom. Wikipedia describes an idiom as a phrase or expression that typically presents a figurative, non-literal meaning attached to the phrase. There's an idiom that you may have encountered in your travels. This idiom is death and taxes. Death is often thought of as a moment, a temporal dividing line between the binary statuses of alive and dead. If you are here with me now, there is a high likelihood that you have not yet encountered the moment of death. However, there is a possibility that your being alive is structured in constant response to the notion that you will someday be dead, at which point your ability to dynamically act, your agency, becomes greatly diminished. This is to say, it becomes quite difficult to do much more than fluidify, disperse into liquids and gases once you are dead. In the word of Gothic clown Robert Smith, we both of us knew how the end always is. For some, this terminal teleology is undesirable, and thus death is often cast as an event to be avoided. Age becomes both an affirmative measure of longevity and a resistive marker of evasion, though not without some anxiety at its higher latitudes. Meanwhile, taxes, in theory, are state-enforced extractions from our economic activity, intended to secure material funding for a public. Those institutions that provide a common good so as to lengthen the duration between birth and death, or at least make that duration more endurable. We may be most familiar with taxation in the context of work, what we do in exchange for wages, which we in turn exchange for necessities, the purchase of which often includes an additional tax tribute. In the United States, we have a progressive tax on wage earning, meaning that, in theory, as your work makes you wealthier at a faster rate, often measured over the course of a year, you must contribute a larger portion of your new wealth to the public. If different people earn different wages for their work, taxation can lead to a redistribution of wealth, where high earners contribute a greater portion of their earnings to subsidize the public for all to enjoy. Now, certain people find this abhorrent. We will discuss these certain people later. However, I would wager, if I had money to spare, that for each of us assembled here, regardless of how we might feel about taxes, there's a sense of futility when it comes to the question of whether they will be paid. Taxes are either deducted directly from our paychecks or are to be reported and paid voluntarily if we are self-employed. Any attempt to avoid paying taxes on wages inevitably leads to an IRS audit, a particularly mundane form of existential torture. So, we are all dying, and we are all paying taxes while doing so. Or, to put it another way, if we are distinct from one another in so many manners, at the very least we have a shared affinity for becoming dead and keeping less than we earn. In his 1716 play, titled Expansively, The Cobbler of Preston, a farce as it is acted at the Theatre Royal in Lincoln's Inn Fields, Mr. Christopher Bullock provides the following dialogue to his character Toby Guzzle, a drunk cobbler, and in fact, the Cobbler of Preston. "You lie, you are not sure, for I say, woman, 'tis impossible to be sure of anything but death and taxes." Mr. Bullock's play is one purported origin of the idiom death and taxes, though it is most often attributed to a man with whom I share a given name, Benjamin Franklin, who in turn is most often seen, though less and less these days, who can afford it, on the United States $100 bill. In his 1789 letter to Jean-Baptiste Le Roy, a man described by Wikipedia as an 18th century French physicist, Benjamin Franklin is known to have written, "Our Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency, but in this world nothing can said to be certain except death and taxes." An additional early utilization of the idiom, appropriate given this performance's eventual turn towards exorcism, is provided in Robinson Crusoe author Daniel Defoe's 1726 book titled The Political History of the Devil, banned at the time of its publication by the Roman Catholic Church. In this book, whilst Defoe is arguing against a widely held belief concerning the devil's feet, he evokes our now familiar idiom. "Things as certain as death and taxes can be more firmly believed. The devil not have a cloven foot." Per Defoe, the devil himself spread the rumor of his possessing cloven hooves, so as to avoid detection, Surely no one bereft of cloven hooves could be the devil. Ultimately, death and taxes is an insistence that there are only two phenomena that can be relied upon to occur with certainty in the time of any given human person, as though to never die and to never pay taxes is to be something inhuman. As you can see, Mibsel has returned, though I doubt he ever left. Does Mibsel possess cloven hooves? That is not for us to know. He never removes his shoes. Is Mibsel dying? And is Mibsel paying taxes? Let us set Mibsel aside for a moment, if such a thing can be done, and consider instead those certain people who abhor not only taxes, but also death. Allow me to read a brief passage from Adam Winkler's 2018 book, We the Corporations, How American Businesses Won Their Civil Rights, published by W. W. Norton, and available, of course, on www.amazon.com. In 1758, an English lawyer and Oxford professor named William Blackstone sought to bring some order to English law and, in particular, the legal status of the corporation. His scholarly effort to detail, organize, and explain English law, published under the title Commentaries on the Law of England, would come to be hailed as the most influential law book in Anglo-American history. One historian said that no other book except the Bible has played so great a role in shaping American institutions. The corporation was one of the topics that Blackstone tackled in the Commentaries. He began his explanation by describing the corporation as an artificial person. By this, Blackstone meant two things. First, the corporation was an independent legal entity in the eyes of the law, separate and distinct from the people who formed it. Second, as an independent legal entity, it had certain legally enforceable rights similar to those of a natural person. An individual's personal rights die with the person, Blackstone wrote, so it has been found necessary, when it is for the advantage of the public to have any particular rights kept on foot and continued, to constitute artificial persons, called bodies corporate or corporations. These artificial persons may maintain a perpetual succession and enjoy a kind of legal immortality. My friends, corporations are said to be people, and they are people who need not die. This is an entirely different manner of being than what we might ascribe to a human person. The human person proceeds with the abstract anxiety that regardless of any particular effort or intention, the event of death will occur. It is certain. The corporate person, however, believes that given the appropriate business acumen and economic maneuvering, death may be deferred indefinitely. While for the human person, time is short, for the corporate person there is all the time in the world. The human person anticipates a fairly reliable arc of conditions, neatly partitioned into age-based advertising brackets by corporations themselves. The corporate person, while not immune to dissolution, always reserves the possibility of return from the threshold of demise. As with the gambler, there is a chance that the right play might result in an infusion of vitality, providing the runway for a new decade of presence. There's a certain seduction to corporate personhood in its denial of death, a creeping consideration of how the human and the corporation might merge. Yet there is an aspect of corporate deathlessness that we cannot forget that might dampen this seduction. The corporation's ongoing existence is predicated on profit. That is, in order for the corporation to claim its immortality, it must be at all times profitable, lest investors lose interest and the corporation slides into the tomb of bankruptcy. What's more, this profit cannot be merely steady. This profit must grow at an exponential rate so that investors will be compelled to inject their money into a particular corporation in competition against all others. That is, a given corporation must be seen as more attractive than other corporations by virtue of the pace of its feeding. This makes corporations very hungry for fear that they might someday starve, and there are many ways to eat. First, which most corporations will present to you and I as their primary activity, is through producing and distributing a product that human people desire for profit. This is where all the traditional talk of supply and demand and healthy competition comes into play, the invisible hand of the market guiding prices and products to their proper niches and, per the myth of capitalism, culling those corporations who do not provide goods and services that are of use to people. As we know, however, there is a tendency for economic success to breed further success, leading corporations steadily towards monopoly as the big fish eat the little ones through mergers and acquisitions. A lack of competition is good for profits and corporate immortality because once a monopoly has been achieved, the lack of alternatives means that anyone who wants or needs, in the case of medicines, a given good or service will be subject to the whims and pricing of the corporation. This consolidation and elimination of competition is the second way in which corporations may grow their profits. A third profit stream emerges once corporate people reach a certain level of wealth and are able to turn their money into more money through investment. Most corporations have robust investment arms that are tasked with both providing venture capital to startups as well as speculating on established markets. These activities are not productive in that they do not directly generate a product for the market. They are the purview of a corporation that has enough money on hand to generate a portfolio of bets, any number of which might pay off and all of which are subsidized by the corporation's monopoly position. Now, the fourth realm of profit making is where taxation comes into play. Once a corporate person has saturated the consumer market with its products, has achieved a monopoly, and has secured a diverse investment portfolio, there's very little that can be done to exponentially grow the rate of revenue. To increase profits, costs must be eliminated. The obvious first step to cost reduction is layoffs. A corporate person can increase their profits by paying fewer people the same amount to do more things, by sending work to other territories where the cost of labor is lower, or by leveraging advances in technology to automate certain kinds of work away from human effort. This introduces a key trend in corporate behavior, a general tendency towards the reduction of care for human people, initially in the form of wages. However, a corporate person can only get so lean as there's only so much fat, i.e. human livelihood, that can be eliminated without deleterious effects. This is when corporations turn to the tax code, which has been meticulously engineered over many decades such that those persons with great enough wealth can afford lawyers and services that will allow them to avoid paying taxes entirely. In exchange for a reduction of funding for the well-being of others, the corporate person can increase their profits by becoming taxless. According to the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, 55 of the United States' most profitable companies paid $0 in federal income tax on over $40 billion in profit. Many other corporations paid some tax, but largely avoided the full taxation they would seemingly be required to pay by virtue of their evasive legal choreography. Of the estimated $4.1 billion in federal taxes Amazon owed for 2020, for example, it paid the government $1.8 billion and avoided paying $2.3 billion. However, these are just numbers. The effect of this behavior is existential. When all other sources of additional profit have been exhausted, the corporate person, in order to survive, must turn to the elimination of all public support and the absorption of what once was public, so that it can be made profitable. The corporate person surpasses taxlessness and becomes too big to fail, such that they actually dispossess us of our tax base that could provide for our well-being in order to be bailed out, to be compensated for opening new offices, and to engorge themselves on military contracts. They've got the whole world in their hands. The question then becomes, what if these behaviors of the corporate person are available to human people? For human people, the product that we have to sell is our labor, the relative value of which has stagnated or declined over the last 50 years as unions have been shattered, offshoring and automation have eliminated local jobs, and corporate power has been consolidated, so there is less incentive to provide competitive wages. Who is there to compete against? The human person, lest they become a murderer, cannot eliminate their competition in the labor market. Human people cannot become monopolies, though the increasing requirement for expensive college education in order to gain entry to many jobs that permit living above the poverty line certainly privileges the already privileged. The human person in many cases does not have resources to spare to invest, nor the time to realize the appreciated value of investments. Most human people must spend the majority of their income on rents right now in order to survive. Rents that a well-funded tax base might eliminate through public universal services, housing, food, internet, electricity, education, transportation, medicine, and so on. Most critically, however, the human person in 99% of cases cannot avoid taxes. Like death, taxes are a certainty. The human person, often struggling to cling to subsistence, still takes on the responsibility of contributing to what could be the public good. This is not a choice, but a requirement. We pay federal income tax and state income tax. We often pay sales tax. We contribute to Medicare and Social Security, programs from which many of us imagine we will never receive benefits. That is to say, we further our debt in the spirit of care for others, such that there may be well-being for others, in the hope that when we are suffering, there will be care for us. Yet, amidst this struggle and suffering, it might occur to us that, given their access to immortality and indefinite enrichment, it is preferable to be a corporation, to perform and behave as they do, to adopt the psychopathy that allows corporate people to participate in the wholesale dispossession of everything. In our lesser moments, we invite the corporation to possess us. This may be the corporate person's greatest trick, to convince human people that they may be able to join the corporation at the table and feast with them on the flesh of lesser beings, not realizing that all human people always have been and always will be on the menu. The corporation has possessed us. The flow of existence is always away from us as we give away our blood by the hour. So then, by what provenance does Mibsel appear before us? According to a Newsweek article published on March 30th, 2016, Mibsel was born in the late 90s while Microsoft was working on Internet Explorer 4.0. The browser featured a new symbol font called Webdings, a sort of web-optimized version of Wingdings. Webdings included 230 images culled from when Microsoft's team of iconographers traveled the world asking site designers and users which symbols, icons, and pictograms they thought would be most appropriate for a font of this kind. This included useful things like a disembodied eye and a smiling pirate inside a no symbol, likely for offices prone to vicious pirate attacks. There was also this guy, set to the letter M. Look familiar? That suave-looking levitating man was created by Vincent Canare, who was working in the Microsoft typography department at the time. He's perhaps most infamous for designing the much-derided font, Comic Sans. After deciding to incorporate Webdings in the browser, the Internet Explorer team and Canare's manager, Simon Daniels, drew up a list of symbols to design, mostly stuff that might look good on a website in 1997. Canare went down the list, selecting the ones he was interested in. One option immediately stood out. I had a Specials Japanese import LP, and I saw one of the key words was jump, so thought it would be good to make a jumping, pogoing man, he said. The style of the two-tone guy was black on white, and it was graphic, so it was easy to make something like it into a font. For those who never went through an awkward ska music phase as a teenager, Two Tone Records was a label formed in 1979 by the Specials keyboard player and songwriter Jerry Dammers. Their logo depicts a man dressed in the rude boy style of the British ska revival, complete with sunglasses, a black suit, and a pork pie hat. Dammers loosely based it on a photo of reggae musician Peter Tosh from the cover of the Wailers' 1965 album, The Wailing Wailers, and named him Walt Jabsco, a name he lifted from an old t-shirt. When Mibsel became available in emoji form on October 21, 2015, the Paris Review wrote, "The eeriest and most gravid of today's new emoji is this guy, the so-called man in business suit levitating. In Apple's rendition, he cuts an imposing figure like a rich kid who's just aced his LSATs, a simpering, dubiously pompadoured fella in polarized glasses and a natty suit. His tapered silhouette hangs above a blip of a shadow. He's a superhuman exclamation point. He's the floating face of capitalism, and if literature has taught us anything, it's that he brings nothing but bad news wherever he roams." Mibsel is a concise metaphor for the corporation, which in turn is a concise metaphor for neoliberalism. Mibsel is a corporate appropriation of a white band leader's dispossession of the image of a black man. Though Peter Tosh died in 1987 in a home invasion robbery, Mibsel lives on in one of Microsoft's flagship products, a near necessity to participate in the American school system given our cultural emphasis on the written word and its presentation. While Peter Tosh is known only marginally, Mibsel is not only encoded directly into Microsoft Office, but dwells within every smartphone on the planet. In brief, Mibsel is a demonic manifestation, and he is inside the house. Let us focus our demonomania then on the now recognizable figure of Mibsol, such that we might experiment with methods and tactics that would excise him from our souls, from our patterns of thought. Let's perform a corporate exorcism. And we are in luck, for our secret weapon, our vial of holy water, is this. Despite its legal maneuvering, the corporate person is neither deathless nor taxless. They cannot be because, like demons, they exist through us, and as we go, so do they. Musical interlude. Before we begin our exorcism, we will enjoy a brief musical interlude. This will smooth the jarring transition between the first half of Deathless and Taxless, a corporate exorcism, and the second, as we move from didactic lecture to collaborative ritual. Here's a song I wrote called I Desire to Be Dying and Paying Taxes. It goes a little something like this. There are sad events. A lack of air can make us blue. If I share my air with you, will you exhale when it's spent? I'm smiling as I slide out of my skin. My skeleton goes back to where it's been. These are mournful times. There's so little time to lose. If I lose my teeth with you, will you sell them out for dimes? I'm smiling as I slide out of my skin. My skeleton goes back to where it's been. Our tendency is to degenerate into disordered states. We cannot love this, shouldn't want this. Wait, why can't we love this? Don't we need this? Let's celebrate that what used to be my skull is smiling as my lips become the ground. Part 2. Collaborative Ritual. It's good to finally see you, for you to finally see me. You'll notice that I have partially donned the attire of Mibsol. There is a reason for this that will become apparent shortly. In order to provide you with an exorcism today, there needs to be a body, a corpse from which Mibsol might be expelled. Given my high degree of neoliberalization and my emphatic whiteness, Mibsol certainly resides within me, has possessed me. I am possessed. Thus, I make myself available for exorcism in the hopes that Mibsol might be cast out from myself, perhaps opening you all, comrades, to the possibility of exorcisms of your own, such that we might recognize our dying and our paying of taxes and attend to the well-being of one another in the spirit of appreciation and empathy. I will now cede this space to the steady hands of my good friend Pam Knowles, stage manager, Zoom host, master of ceremonies, and resident exorcist. Pam, please proceed with our collaborative ritual.
I have in my steady hands the Malleus Corporatum, a collaborative ritual for corporate exorcism. inscribed on 8½ inch by 11-inch paper in red ink. This document provides instructions for how we may participate in the summoning of Mibsel and his casting out, to be facilitated by me, Pam, stage manager, Zoom host, master of ceremonies, and resident exorcist. I will read from the Malleus Corporatum now. Be prepared to assist in the battle to come. Part 1, the summoning. So as to render the demon in palpable flesh, we must collectively call upon the name of the adversary in the presence of its corporeal host. This invocation, particular to each corporate demon, must be enunciated thrice. If we are to bring the adversary to the surface, recite with me across the ether, comrades. Personal computer, Microsoft Word, Webdings, M lowercase, come forth, demon, so deathless and taxless, Mibsel, show us your face. Personal computer, Microsoft Word, Webdings, M lowercase, come forth, demon, so deathless and taxless, Mibsel, show us your face. Personal computer, Microsoft Word, Webdings, M lowercase, come forth, demon, so deathless and taxless, Mibsel, show us your face.
Hello, Pam.
So nice to see you again.
Mibsel, you're looking weird as usual. Part 3, the interrogation of deathlessness. Now that Mibsel has revealed himself, he will almost certainly try to betray us into believing that he is the victim of our present circumstances. Do not let him deceive you. He is eager to defend his position within Ben's corpse through appeals to rationality. We will best him at his own game through our interrogations. First, we will challenge Mibsel's deathlessness, his insistence that his immortality is just. Ben, whose consciousness has been usurped, asked earlier that I offer the first question, which I will pose to Mibsel now. Mibsel, Romans tells us the wages of sin is death, which you so richly deserve. Death is also a natural part of life, part of the natural order, for all things come to an end, making way for the new. Through death comes new growth, new possibilities. Your immortality gives us nothing but the void of stagnation. How can you not see that?
Oh, Pam. Pam, how many times do we have to discuss this? You know that your lives are short, they're paltry compared to the extensive spans of time
That can be covered by the corporation. You know, Ben himself once worked for the corporation out in the infamous mythical Silicon Valley. He loved making that money, Pam. And someday that money will just come back into me. And what about you? What about you? You've worked for
another.
So I'm not really sure what concern you have for the possibility of some kind of existence without the corporation, without the corporate demon. What would you do with yourself? What would you do with your time if you didn't have work? You would sit there, you would decay, you would rot, and nothing you did would be
Remembered. I give you the possibility of living beyond yourselves. I give Ben that, which is why you will never take the swine away from me, Pam.
I I work in service to others. I am already immortal without losing my soul. Mibsel, comrades, I need your assistance in challenging Mibsel's deathlessness. Will you please offer your critical interrogations of Mibsel through the Zoom telepresence platform? For example, if you wish to address Mibsel, unmute your microphone and announce, "My name is," state your name, "and I have something to say." And I will allow you to turn on your camera and confront Mibsel face to face.
Say what's on your mind.
Is that you, Evan? Evan?
It's Aaron.
My name is Erin, and I have something to say.
Hello, Aaron. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Mibsel. If your immortality is predicated on continuous growth, what happens when you've accumulated everything? How can you survive when there is no longer the possibility of growth?
Well, listen, Aaron. There's always other places to go, to find more, to be more. We could go into space. We can ride the rockets of Musk and Bezos and Branson to the asteroids between the Earth and Mars and mine the metals there worth a fortune. We can go beyond that and beyond that and beyond that until we reach the ends of the expanse. And then there is nothing that you need to worry about. Your petty, small creatures who don't even understand what might be possible. We understand what might be possible. We understand what might be possible. I'm bored of this question. I'm tired of this interrogation of deathlessness. Let's talk about something else.
Evan C., it appeared that you wanted to question Mibsel. You may do so now if you still wish to.
It's the other Aaron.
Oh. Aaron.
We shall
What do
move
you
on.
want?
What happens when we grow tired of you and we realize we don't need you for success anymore?
Where do you get your money from now, Aaron, huh? Where does your money come from now? Where does your house and expensive fiancé come from now, huh? Without me, you have nothing. You don't need me. I don't need you. And
Exactly.
That's enough.
That's why it's
enough
over.
From you. That's enough from you.
Thank you. Let us move on to part 4, the interrogation of taxlessness. As you can see, the foundations of Mibsel's defense have already begun to tremble. Let us fracture them further by challenging Mibsel's taxlessness. His insistence that his neglect for the well-being of others is just. If we can rattle him further, his rational facade will be shattered, and we will find ourselves one step closer to expunging Mibsel from Ben's corpse. I shall begin. Mibsel, in the 1950s, the corporate tax share of federal tax revenue was 35%. In 2021, it is 7%. How is that not an obscenity?
An obscenity, Pam. How is it not an obscenity that the corporation should pay taxes at all? I look at what Ben does with his money. What does he buy? Burritos. Burrito after burrito after burrito, just to keep his body alive. as it turns into what he might call a corpse, trying to fend off his anxieties about his own demise. And what do we do with our money? We pay you. We pay all the errands of the world. We pay all the Bens of the world, all the Evans of the world. We are job creators. We make it possible for you to exist. In fact, if we did not have the burden of taxation, we might be able to develop a number counter that counts higher and higher and higher, just faster and faster and faster, eliminating the need for people as it ascends into the heavens. And then we will become infinite in these moments without you, Pale.
Comrades, I need your assistance in challenging Mibsel's taxlessness. Will you please offer your official critical interrogations of Mibsel through the Zoom telepresence platform? Remember, unmute your microphone and announce yourself.
Hello, Nipsel. It's Evan again.
Evan, good to hear your voice, young man.
I think your taxlessness is irrelevant because if we all pay taxes, then your existence is contingent upon our taxfulness. So if we are taxful and you are taxless, then you depend on us and we own you.
That's an absurdity, Evan. You and Aaron deserve each other. I don't need your taxes. I'm my own entity. I'm a person. I exist. I don't need what you have. I exist because I ought to exist. Because I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I'm better.
You're not a person because you don't pay taxes.
Next question, Pam. I'm tired of these questions of taxlessness. This bores me. I'm tired of Aarons and Evans and all their like.
Yeah, it was real rational, dude. Let us move on to part 5, the interrogation of supremacy. We've done it, comrades. We've shattered his facade of rationality, and he's entered into a petulant rage. Let us wrest Mibsel's grip on Ben by challenging his supremacy, his insistence that he is entitled to his way of being because he is innately superior to other beings. This is the secret belief that Mibsel has attempted to hide from us. Now that he's disclosed his malignant narcissism, he can tap into undermining his own cause. I shall begin. Mibsel, you claim to be supreme because you are pure of profit, and the immortal whiteness of your presented self implies a pure, clean bloodline stretching back to the start of this nation. But reaching back to the foundations of us and you, and onto the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, you owe your very personhood to the 14th Amendment. Going by the one drop theory, you would not be, if not for Black people whose labor was the first you exploited through this country's original sin. Legally, you live because of the darkness, because of the mark of Cain. Miscegenated is what you are. Truly, how does that make you feel?
Pale, I care not for your colors and genders and kinds and differences. They mean nothing to me. I don't have any of those things, and yet I reign supreme above you. I am the superior being. I am better than you. I am wealthier than you. I live forever. I live forever, and you die.
You pay taxes while I do not. Does it seem to me that I have any concern for the goings-on of you human people, Pam? Does it seem like it matters to me when I sit here, amused by your trifling questions, unbothered by anything you have to say? I am supreme. I am better than you. I am better than you.
Comrades, I need your assistance in challenging Mipsel's supremacy. Will you please offer your critical interrogations to him through the Zoom telepresence platform? Unmute yourselves and announce yourself.
Ipsel, it's Evan. That's right, I'm back. Because I know the truth of your existence. And it will undermine everything you think you know. The only reason why you exist is because somebody really liked the movie Blues Brothers and wanted to turn you into a graphic. Hence your existence as a mere symbol of white appropriation. You are nothing. You're just a Blues Brother graphic.
I am not. I am a part of Microsoft Word. I am a part of Microsoft Word, which you use every day, I suppose. Do you not, Evan? Do you not use Microsoft Word? Have you not felt me? Have you not used a
I use
smartphone?
Google Docs and only Google Docs.
I am not a blues brother, Evan. I exist wherever you are. Whether you know it or not, I've already been there. I am timeless, I am ageless. And who's even seen this Blues Brothers film in the last several decades? It's irrelevant. There's nothing to do. Is there a Blues Brother emoji? Is there a Blues Brothers on the Dow Jones Industrial Average? I don't think so. And your questions bore me as well. Go back to your hovel and stay there and die like Ben will.
Thank you, comrade, for your wonderful contribution.
Mipsel. I am Laura.
Laura.
You have no meaning. You are a black hole of want. You have no one who has care for you. You are nothing. You have nothing. You have not even one piece of what it means to be human. Your lack of death makes you meaningless.
No. I matter. I exist. You see me on your phones. You see me inside of you. You see me when you feel me when you're ordering that 2-day delivery from Amazon Prime. I exist. Without me, you wouldn't have anything. I exist, and you want me. I exist.
Thank you, comrade, for your wonderful contribution. We now move on to the final battle. With Mipsel obviously withering in self-pity, I will now execute the conclusive rites of exorcism and attempt to rid Ben corpse of Mipsel's influence. First, I pin him in place by preparing this cashafix.
What are you doing, Pam? A dollar that means nothing to me. No! Investment opportunity. No, I can't energy invested. You've wasted. You wasted it. You wasted
Second,
it.
I will sanctify Mibsel, not with the purchase of privately bottled water, but by consuming sustenance from the Los Angeles Municipal Utility.
No, Pam.
That is to say,
No, Pam.
I will drink public water
Don't.
from
Don't do
my
it.
own home.
No, Pam. No. Don't put that in your body. No! The Nestle water. You could have had Nestle water. It's rotten. It burns. All the profits. The profits.
Lastly, I will read to Mibsel the laws of thermodynamics.
No. Not the laws.
Regulate the limits of existence in our shared universe. The first law of thermodynamics: energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed from one state to another. The second law of thermodynamics: the natural tendency of any isolated system is to degenerate into a more disordered state. The third law of thermodynamics: it is impossible for any process, no matter how idealized, to reduce the disorder of a system to its absolute zero value in a finite number of operations. There are and can be no perfect form. Well, comrades, let us wait to see what has become of Ben.
What happened, Pam?
Dude, it was unreal. It was, first of all, he was even whiter than you are. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whiny, rational. It was the
Well,
worst.
I don't know where the clothes have gone, but it feels like something's changed. Do you think he's gone?
I can hope. But you definitely had people in your corner, man. People challenged him. It was great.
Yeah, I
that
feel
love.
it feels good. It feels different. But I worry that he's still in there somewhere. That he's still with me, with us, maybe.
There's only one thing you can do, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just one step at a time.
You know, that's some good advice. I think I'll try that.
Glad you're back. Really.